Hey, Rebel Bankers, this is your host, Chris Noggle, and welcome back to the show. I've got an unbelievable person here for you today, somebody that's built something pretty incredible, something that's going to talk a lot about your mindset. So I am here with Jamil. Jamil, how do you say your last name?
Damji, just like a D-A-M and the letter G.
All right. So Jamil Damji he is known as the Godfather of Wholesaling. You don't just get a title like that, like the Godfather of Wholesaling. Former LA comedian. He built a team with his sister and his two good friends called Keegley. And just to kind of put this into perspective, you know that on this show, we don't bring a ton of wholesalers on because there's just so many of them out there and it's hard to pick and choose who's real and who's not. But here's the determining factor for Keegley: 40 plus employees. Now, I don't know if any of you know anything about building a business, but when you hit 40 employees, you got yourself some real problems and a real business, whichever one you want to put first. So welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Thank you all for having me on.
Absolutely. So, we're going to get a little bit into your story. We're going to talk about a lot of things. I have no idea where it's going to go. But first, I want to talk a little bit to the audience that's watching this. And I want to talk to all of you about you and your start in this business and whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, your journey to becoming a rebel banker. So in this journey, you all have heard me say this one too many times: you gotta take action. There is so much time spent in getting knowledge and watching podcasts, going out there, watching YouTube, reading books, but there is so little time spent on just taking action. And those action steps can be these minute little steps. Like one step, one day will get you that much further for the next day. You want to look at everything as each day is going to be a step closer to whatever your goal is. You do not have to jump across the Grand Canyon on your first shot. Small steps, folks. You got to crawl before you walk before you run, and run before you run a marathon. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a lot of mindset today and you getting started. Get started on the money journey with my book, The Private Money Guide. Grab a copy of that. That will teach you where all the money is for all your real estate deals. All right, Jamil, let's get into this, man. Tell us a little bit about your business today and what you guys are doing.
Awesome. So I'm the president, co-founder of Keegley. Keegley is a wholesale operation that is based out of Phoenix, Arizona. We're in 9 markets right now, mainly Phoenix, Tucson, Orlando, Tampa, Houston, and Atlanta, Georgia. The other markets are still developing that I didn't name. We are just really enjoying what we're doing. Wholesalers, for those of you who don't know what we do, our job is to find distressed property or potential projects for rehabbers, fix and flippers, builders, anyone who's interested in adding value. A lot of folks that are in that space don't have the time to find the raw materials that they need to do what it is that they do. And so our job as wholesalers is to find those projects, find those opportunities, and present them to individuals who may want to take them vertical. Our company right now does anywhere between 65 to 90 deals a month. I know.
That's just insanity.
It's a blessing. It's probably one of the most rewarding things I've ever had the pleasure of being involved in my life. And I wake up every day just happy to be me.
Yeah, I can understand why. That's a lot of deals, and we're going to talk about that many deals. I mean, we have a wholesale operation here, nothing like what you do. We don't even really focus on it. It sort of just happens as a component of what we do. But so you got a pretty darn big wholesaling operation in a pretty crazy market for wholesaling, because your market is what I would call oversaturated, not just saturated, oversaturated. Anyone that most people know of, like that's at the top of the game in wholesaling, you guys are all in Arizona. A couple of you are down in Florida, but you're also in Florida too. So that's interesting that you've built this ginormous business in one of the hardest markets probably to build this kind of a business. So my hat's off to you, even though I don't have one on, for those of you not watching this. So let's take a moment and go back to the beginning, and let's tell the story. I mean, I don't know where the beginning is. Is it the LA when you were a comedian in LA? Is it the 2008 crash? Wherever you want to start.
That's the intermission. So around 2002, I got my first taste of real estate. And I think that's where my friends and colleagues decided to call me the Godfather of Wholesaling, because in my crazy mind, I thought I invented it, but I hadn't. I was living in Canada, Calgary, Alberta, to be specific. And at the time, I was a partner in a media company where we would build these websites. In 2002, this is when everything was dial-up. People didn't really have websites for their businesses. People were still finding advertisements out of the yellow pages. So this is back in the day for you millennials that are listening. And we were building these websites that we would charge $600 for that ultimately ended up costing us $700 to make. And
great business.
Great business. So every time we made a sale, I lost $100. Awesome. So I'm listening to my business partner and his father talk about these duplexes that they're building, and he's describing them making profits of $160,000 each duplex. And he's complaining that they can't find any more of these building lots so that they can continue doing this process. And I'm eavesdropping. I'm not invited in this conversation, but I can't help myself but soak it in. So when my friend's father leaves, I literally bust his door in and I said, I need you to talk to me about what this is. And his first inclination was to just shoo me away and say, look, Jamil, this is like big money stuff. This is something that you'll never really be involved in. You're not a builder. You're not a financier. So, I wouldn't worry your mind about this. Let's think of more ways to sell more $100 deficit websites. And I wasn't letting it go. And so I said, okay, I understand. I'm never going to build a duplex, and that's okay. But your dad was talking about these building lots. What is he saying? Because he wants to find these, and if maybe I could do that. And he said, well, what he needs are these 50 by 120 foot lots that they can bulldoze these old homes on, subdivide the lot, and put a duplex up. And I said, thanks for the information. And I walked out, picked up the phone, and sold another website. And the next day, I was walking my dog, and I lived in a neighborhood where this activity was going on. So I knew what he was talking about because I'd see these duplexes coming up all around me. And I was renting the house that I lived in, and there were a few other houses in the neighborhood that were for rent that I knew of because when I was searching for a place to stay in that neighborhood, all these places were for rent. So a few months had passed, and I was walking by one house that was for rent at the same time that I was moving into mine, and she still had her property available. And my mind just went to problem-solving mode, and I thought, maybe she's ready to sell. And maybe this is one of those things that, my friend's dad is trying to find. And so I just called her, and I asked, I understand your property's for rent, and I'm not looking to rent it, just to get that off the, right off the hop. I'm actually interested in the purchase, but I need to know one thing. Is your house on a lot that's 50 by 120 feet? And she said, no, it's not. It's 50 by 130, so it's better. And so I said, awesome. What would you sell this property for? If the right number came to me and if I got $350,000, I'd be happy. And so I go back to my friend, and I say, how much will your dad pay for one of these lots? And he says, well, 400,000 is the going rate. And so right away I knew I had something, right? I knew I could buy a property for 350. I could sell it to his father for 400, but I had no way and no idea how to do it. Because this is pre-Sperber, pre-Sean Terry, pre-Colby. Like, these guys weren't selling education at that time. There was no wholesale, phenomenon at the, in that space and especially in my life in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And so I'm racking my head trying to figure out what to do. And I end up realizing that property conveyance happens through real estate attorneys in Canada. And so I just opened up the phone book and started calling attorneys. And this one attorney, David Steed, I'll never forget his name, said to me the exact process that I was looking for. He told me that I just had to get two contracts, one contract where I purchased the property and I wrote my name as the buyer and I wrote and/or assigns after my name. And then I got another contract and I would use that to sell the property to the builder who wanted to buy it. And I would take those contracts to him, and when everything was done, he would give me a check. And it was that simple. And I literally did that. So I made $50,000 on my first wholesale transaction on accident, really just paying attention to the world around me. And then, both in the space that I worked at and even when I was walking my dog. And so, for me, being present just being available to hear things was super important, and it changed my life in that instant. And then from there, I just exploded. I went from wholesaling these building lots because I knew exactly what to look for. And, there was nobody out there doing what I was doing. So I would just get the classified section and I'd call down the for rents, and I would just keep getting these things under contract. It was like taking candy from a baby because I had no competition. I moved from doing building lots to seeing that these developers were taking these apartment buildings and condo converting them. And so I thought, okay, well, maybe that's a new product that I could wholesale. And so I started tying up apartment buildings and I started flipping them to developers to do condo conversions with. And the money just kept getting bigger and bigger. Every time I'd flip an apartment building, I'd get $100,000. And, I was young at the time, so I did all kinds of crazy things with my money. But one of the craziest things was try to be something I wasn't. I was naturally inclined to do this wholesale thing. I wasn't a developer. I wasn't a builder. And I realized this after the fact, but, my sister and I got ahead of ourselves. We ended up deciding we wanted to make the money that everyone else was making. Mm-hmm. And so we doubled down and went in on 4 condo conversion projects. I had my father co-sign the loans on all of them. With 2008 happens, and within 6 months, we're upside down on all of the projects. The house I had bought my mom for Mother's Day was in foreclosure. My house was in foreclosure. Our vehicles were being repossessed. Fast forward, it's just me, my mom, my dad, my sister, my niece, our 150-pound dog, and our cat in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment living on top of each other because we went from millionaires to destitute. And that was hard. That was just one of those things that I didn't see coming. When you start really getting success, you think it's never going to leave you. And I think I'm not the kind of person that ever wants to think the sky is falling or, be over-prepared or like I'm not in that vein of thought. At the same time, I learned a lot of lessons from the things I did wrong in that time in my life. But beyond that, I'm going back to that spot where we're poor. We've got nowhere to live. So I asked if my parents would indulge me in exploring a dream I had to do stand-up comedy. And so we all packed it in, moved to Los Angeles, and I spent the next, 4 years on stages at the Comedy Store, the Laugh Factory, doing improv at UCB, really just enjoying life, making the videos for Funny or Die. I mean, I got to explore a part of my mind and a part of my heart that I really enjoyed doing, but real estate always sucked me back, right? And so in 2012, I'm doing sketch videos for Funny or Die's website. I'm enjoying life there. I'm buying now. I'm getting back into real estate in Phoenix because what I found was I could buy these almost newer built condos just at the bottom of the market for like $25,000, $30,000 in Phoenix.
Wow.
And they were renting for $800. And so I'm sitting over here in LA with this crazy rent bill that's due every month. And I think, okay, well, what I could do is I could just go buy these condos for 25, 30 grand, get $800 a month, arbitrage that to pay my rent over here. And now I can basically own, $200,000 worth of real estate and cover $1 million worth of payments that you would make on a rental over in LA. And so that's where my mind was going. I started tying more and more of these deals up, and I had a funding issue on 2 of them near the end. I just had run out of money to close on these 2 short sales. And so I write an ad. I put this random ad up on Craigslist. And, because I had experience with flipping contracts in the past now. And so this is something I think I can still do. I didn't know the mechanisms and how it was going to work in between LA and Phoenix and whatnot. But I wrote the ad and I get a call. I get a call within like 10 minutes of putting the ad up. And this guy named Tim Wynn, who lives in Phoenix, Arizona, went to go see the 2 properties that I had posted on Craigslist, and within a half an hour, I wanted to make a deal. So again, it's too easy, right? I get pushed back into this spot. I make a $20,000 clip on those 2 deals. And then Tim invites me to Phoenix, Arizona to come hang out with him for a week. I don't know what it was. I guess we clicked on the phone. We laughed a lot when we were talking about this deal. He felt comfortable to invite me to Phoenix to just watch what he was doing. And I was, unemployed enough to take him up on it, right? So I came to Phoenix and I watched what he was doing. And I literally watched the guy make 50 grand in that week. And I didn't look back. So on my birthday, it was 12/12/12. I packed up a U-Haul and I was driving down the 10 to Phoenix. And the best thing that ever happened to me in my life.
Wow. It's a good one. You probably heard a lot of that when you were a comedian. I had to. That's a good story. Wow. That's crazy. And it's got a lot of crazy spins and twists and everything else in there. So today, that's all you guys do is just wholesaling, right? You don't do any flips, no wholesales, nothing else, just standardized assignment contracts.
Assignments and double closes, depending on the
well, yeah, double closes, yeah. That's incredible. And how do you? God, I'm thinking 40 employees. We have about 12 here. How do you keep 40 employees busy wholesaling? Like, tell me, like what do 40 people do with wholesaling? Are they all like?
I'd love to answer that question. We have a really crazy structure at Keegley. So to talk on the first thing that you had mentioned about me being in, Guru Mecca, right? Surrounded by all of these guys pumping out new wholesalers, day after day after day. And what I found happened about 4 years ago, right when we opened Keegley, was I was showing up to the same buy appointments as like everybody else, right? So we'd put out a sign or do some mail or whatever it was, and we'd get a call, and I'd show up to a house, and like right behind me was every one of my competitors, and it was getting crazy. And then what we do is we track the deal. We'd see somebody would beat us out on the contract because they would offer more than we did, and then the deal would cancel, right? And because they weren't able to sell the property,
right? Because it was too expensive.
Too expensive. But what we saw there was an opportunity to fill a gap, and that gap was dispositions. And so while everybody was training on acquisitions, while all these companies were growing on going out and getting contracts, but really having no idea how to sell them.
Right, you didn't have the buyers.
They didn't have the buyers. We planted our flag on the opposite side of the street. We went to town on investing our money into building out a department in our company called Intake. What Intake does is a data mining operation where we find qualified buyers. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on building relationships and finding these buyers. And what I mean by finding these buyers, it's not the average way that wholesalers do. We're not checking tax record for who bought in cash and who bought in hard money. That's what everyone's doing, right? What we're doing is we're social profiling. So we're taking a look at someone and saying, wow, this individual likes dental equipment, this one page that advertises scalers for hygienists, Ferrari and Rolex. There's a good chance this person's a dentist, right? So what my team will then do is send them an outreach message and say, hi, I'm from Keegley. We specialize in providing investors with distressed property with equity. Are you interested in buying investment property in the Phoenix, Arizona market, or whichever town that we're doing intake outreach for? 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes. These guys are educated people. And if you say to somebody, I'm going to give you something worth $1 for 70 cents, they're interested, right? And so we get them to opt into our list, which is key, right? We do it right. We get a legal opt-in to our list so that we can begin communication. And then within the next week, a rep from my office, our other largest department at Keegley, which is our dispositions team, reaches out and really dives deep into what this individual would be looking for if they were going to make a purchase. We set them up with their hard money lender so that they feel confident about their funding capacity and how quickly they can do things. We really take care of the situation and take care of the buyer. Then when we have a deal that matches that buyer's criteria, it closes like that, right? So what we've done and why we have 40 plus employees is we actually have the majority of our business, the majority of our manpower in the data mining and in the dispositions part of the business, which is completely opposite to what you'll find in every other wholesale operation out there. And so with that, what we've been able to do is we've become the wholesaler's wholesaler, right? We've become the distribution. If you want to relate it to the record business, we're the record label, right? That now has the capacity to distribute and sell this product to thousands and thousands of people. So it's inherently given us more business because we are so good at it that all of our competition has decided to collaborate with us. So I've done a deal with every one of my competitors in this market, and I continue to do them all the time. In fact, most of my competitors have become my best friends.
So I mean, that's very smart, because I know in our wholesale business, when we first started, we would buy a lot of deals. We were huge flippers. I mean, that's what we did. We flipped, and we had our TV show, and, that just made, we did several hundred flips, and we were always looking for our own deal. But on occasion we'd get two deals and we're like, let's see if anyone else wants this one. And we put it out there. And if we didn't have a buyer for it, we just did it ourselves. That would have been way smarter if we just spent our time and energy building the buyers, which we did do that the second year of when we started wholesaling. We had more buyers than we had properties. But the problem we ran into, and you might sometimes do this or have an answer to it, is we would have all the buyers, and we'd then find the deal for them, because we built a profile of what that buyer specifically wanted, what their key things were that they were looking for. And we'd bring them the deal, and they still wouldn't close on the deal because, well, I can't get the money, or they just find every excuse in the world to not buy what they just got done telling us they wanted to do, or they'd fall out of, fall out of escrow. And then we were just, I had more than enough money, because that's always been my specialty, is figuring out money. And that's kind of where I've carved my niche, but I would just close the deal and do it myself in that time. And that's how we did so many. So how do you alleviate that part? So you have all the buyers, you've pre-qualified them, you know what they want, but how many of them actually, when you bring them the deal they want, actually fall out?
So we add 4,000 buyers a month to our list.
4,000?
4,000 buyers a month. And so we don't have that problem, because when one guy decides that he's not ready, we just move on to the next, right? And that's what's been able to save us from having that situation hamper us.
Yeah, that's smart. Okay. So just sheer volume, sheer numbers. Yeah, that's incredible. Wow. And it's very different than what I've heard, because obviously I've gone through the traditional stuff. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars having coaches, like some of the best wholesalers, some of the guys you mentioned, come out here, teach my team all about the acquisitions team, the integrator, the dispositions. And, it was just never my calling. It was just never what I really felt comfortable doing. But, it's like I learned it all, but I never had one of them say, forget about all this. Forget about finding the deals. Why don't we just focus on just finding all the buyers that you'd ever need, and just keep finding the buyers? Because you're right. Then you become, like you were mentioning, all the other wholesalers that are out there learning the traditional ways. When they can't sell a deal, guess what? If they knew you had all the buyers and you held that key, they just come to you and just do the deal together, and you get paid for, their efforts. It's wicked. It's awesome. I love it. Absolutely love it. So during this whole process of going from where you were and then, kind of losing it all in 2008, what was the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome? What was actually, let's go a little bit deeper than that. What was the biggest external obstacle that you had to face after 2008?
I'm glad you clarified that. The biggest external obstacle I guess I would have had was just, I always feel like it comes back inside, right? I feel like it always comes back inside, but I think I was just beat up. I was just beat up. I was looking around. I had to, you're looking at the market. You have fear that this can happen to me again. You're seeing the greatest real estate depression of all time, right? And you're still thinking that it could get worse, right? So that was happening outside of me, that the economy was happening outside of me. The economy didn't really start increasing or doing better until like 13, and then we had more hiccups during the government shutdown in 15. So there were these hiccups, but with that being said, that down market, that downturn that was happening, I was watching wholesale flourish, right? And so it was really about understanding that money is made in bad times. You have to look around you and you have to see what the environment is, where is the energy? Where are people scurrying? When you're in an apocalypse, like what I feel like 2009 looked like, right? And it's the Night of the Living Dead, and there's zombies walking around, but you see that there's some energy, there's some activity happening, downfield. Do you stay where you are because it's safe, because you've carved out your little niche of a place to kind of lick your wounds and stay alive, or do you go down towards where you see energy? I think that we have, in our cyclical business cycles here in America, especially in real estate, we have these things happen to us, and we have to be able to navigate that environment with some creativity. And if you're seeing that you're in a situation where things don't look the best to everybody else, I think that's the place where you start picking up all the rocks and finding the gold nuggets under them, because you're really one of the only people out there doing it. So for me, the biggest external thing was what was happening in the economy, and then letting myself feel comfortable and confident enough to still move forward and continue and look for opportunities in a depressed situation.
So that's interesting. And I was going to ask a different question, but I'm going to go somewhere else with that. So, when you look at the past, you can always almost predict the future. The dots cannot be connected in the future, but they certainly can connect in the past. So if you just follow the dots and you try to connect them to what's coming next, I'm in the money business, and that's kind of what I've been in most of my life. So I can tell you right now, without a shadow of doubt, the stock market is going to start to feel the signs of some type of correction, maybe recessionary period, the next 6 to 12 months. No questions. It's going to. And I have people argue this with me, and I'm just like, where do you even come off thinking that this isn't going to happen? Why? Because the president's doing a good job with, business. He can't control this. It's a cyclical pattern. It's always happened. 12 years into a 5 to 7 year normal cycle. What do you think is going to happen? But now where you're at, you've built this giant company. You've gone through the one crash. You learned a lot from that, which many people, the funny thing is, the millennials of the world, how old are you?
40.
You're 40. I'm 42. Do you realize that the millennials don't even remember 2008? Does that ever come up? Like, you ever think about that? We're 40. So we went through it and we saw our parents go through it. Do you realize millennials don't even really know what a recession is? They just think that this little boom area that we've been in, this little bull market we've been in, that's just all there is. Right. But that's crazy to think, isn't it? Like, we're old enough to realize it, and we're just like, it was just right around, just not long ago. But really, if you think about a millennial, 12 years ago, they were a kid. Yep. They were a kid and they don't remember this. So now they're all just rushing toward this, right? If there's a bomb going to go off over there, they're running to it. They're going through the education. They're coming out all hot and heavy and excited, and they're running to it. Where guys like you and we're like, I remember that bomb's going to go off. So I'm running the opposite way, and wholesaling is kind of a unique business because you got a lot of iBuyers and everything else, which are going to continue to keep buying into a downward cycle. But what do you see happening in the next year? How are you preparing for that? Where do you see the opportunity? I mean, if you're always looking for the area where the energy is, where the stones can be turned over for the golden nuggets, what's next?
So my thoughts are very similar to yours. I believe that we definitely are on the horizon of some form of correction or recession. My thoughts are that they may not be negatively impacting real estate. And here's why. Last 5 recessions, only 2 of them negatively impacted real estate. The last one was focused on real estate, so we understand how that happened, right? But beyond that, the other 3 actually had a positive impact. And why? It was because of inflation. I believe that the next thing that we're walking into is another inflationary run. I think that we've been printing money. Mm-hmm. I think that we've got too much consumer debt. And when I watch hedge funds, and I'm looking at energy, because we're talking about where the energy is, right? Because we sell to a lot of portfolios and hedge funds.
Sure.
And I'm seeing these hedge funds buy these properties, and they're paying too much money for them.
Too much money, but they're just putting them on a balance sheet.
They are. And for me, that looked ludicrous, right? I thought these people are crazy, but it's not.
No,
it's
they're smarter.
capital protection. They're smarter than I am, right? Capital protection, because they know that real estate, it's one of those vehicles that goes up with inflation. So for them, they're thinking, look, if we hold in cash right now, we're screwed because our dollar will only be worth 50 cents. But if we park in real estate, even if it's not cash flowing, it'll rise with inflation. The recession will happen, but we won't get hit on value. And so by putting together those pieces, by seeing the activity with the hedge funds, by seeing what people in the past with lots of money have done, I can say that I feel confident, and again, not 100% sure, but I feel confident that we still will have opportunities through this next recession, because I don't feel it's going to be real estate related.
That wasn't the right button I was looking for, but it still works.
That is so fun.
That still works. I'm not laughing at you. I was actually thinking that was going to be like somebody screaming in excitement, because the way you just described that is so smart. And I watched this whole, so that's the only thing I'm focused on right now, to be perfectly honest. We right now as a company, being a big multi-million-dollar real estate company, we're not hardly flipping any houses. We just bought one because my wife needs something to do, but we're just sitting back watching this. And the biggest thing, and I talked to everybody from Kent Clothier to Justin Colby, who have both been on this podcast, and I asked them all that same question. I've never gotten the answer you did, because they know what it is and they know what they're doing, but that's genius what you said. And it's absolutely right. I come from Wall Street. What hedge funds are doing, what these ginormous funds and these Wall Street guys are doing with real estate is exactly what you said. See, everybody can't understand why. How is, Open Door paying that for the price? That they can't be making money on it. They don't care about making money. They don't give two rats' asses about making money on that property. It is capital preservation, but they also understand real estate in the sense that not only can they park the money there, they're not going to lose it. Their investors' money is safe, and they can play the longer game than we can. So they're doing that. But the second thing that they know is they just put a little bit of money into it. They instantly have a cash flowing product. They now have something that is cash flowing. It doesn't matter that they overpaid for it, because they're just looking for a tiny little return to hedge the market and to beat when the market goes down. And by doing that, they are so far ahead of the game, and no one even knows what the hell they're doing. They're just sitting there like, well, I'll keep selling them properties. You are literally feeding the monster, and that monster will be the one that wins in the long game. That was awesome. That was absolutely awesome. I love that you said that. So with that, what else? I don't have that much longer today, but talk just real quick about the mindset that allows you to run at the levels you are.
I reset constantly what's going on energetically with me, right? I'm one of those people that I can really feel what's going on in the room. How I feel affects my day. But what I can tell you is the key thing that has helped me in my life, that has turned me around after a crash, has been making sure I protect what's going on in here. I curate the music I listen to. I curate the TV shows I watch, if I watch any. I pay more attention to the types of books that I'm listening to, because I know that if I'm feeding myself positive input, I'm going to get positive output, right? So, I have a unapologetic daily routine. I wake up in the morning, I meditate, I do, some strenuous activity, and then I just take a little bit of time to be grateful and see my wife and have some time. And then I get into my day. I can say that if anyone listening would create for themselves some form of self-care practice where they're paying attention to what's going on in here, you ultimately get to pave the path that you want. You are a reflection of what's inside you. Your entire world is a reflection of what's going on inside you. I always used to think that was hippie. I always used to think that was just some new age mumbo jumbo, but I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that everything that I see in my life is directly a reflection of what's inside of me.
Absolutely. You're number one, the first thing you're doing is you're connecting to the source through meditation. You're literally connecting to the energy, to the source, to the power that then is radiating straight through. And then you're just going into all those, you're giving gratitude. No, I mean, if you think any successful person, I mean, one of the things this show has done for me is allowed me to connect and hear the journey and the methods and just the procedures that some of the most successful people take. And when I meet people, that's what I'm always looking for is what is it that you do every day? And, a lot of times the answer is not what you think. Everybody thinks, oh, I get up and I start hustling. Absolutely not. Like you connect. Me, I get down on my knees and I give thanks. That's what I do. That's the very first thing. My eyes aren't even open yet. My knees are on the ground. My hands are together and I give thanks. The next thing I do is I get down and I start doing push-ups. And you said you do something strenuous. I don't know why it's push-ups for me. It's the thing that just doesn't require me to think. And then after that, through my day, I've got reminders that go off. One, to tell my mom I love her. Number two, to, do something for my wife. I don't care. Even if it's just send her lunch, send her a flower, just these acts of these daily habits you do, which have nothing to do with business, but they have everything to do with business because it's keeping this thing regimented. It's keeping that mind out of trouble because once you let your mind drift, it's very difficult to course correct it. So if you don't have those reminders through the day, those daily habits, it doesn't work. Doesn't work. I mean, like Richard Branson, if you ever study him and you look at what he does and you ask him what the most important thing every single day is, you know what he'll tell you? Exercise.
Wow.
Exercise. And people are like, wait, that's more important than running? Yes, it's more important than everything because this right here is the only thing I have on this earth that is going to make me be able to do everything else. And if I don't keep this thing in its tip-top shape and I don't think this thing comes along with this thing, it all falls apart underneath you. So yeah, I mean, it's just like, these are the simple things. Everybody in this world is trying to overcomplicate everything. And really everything we have, everything we can accomplish, everything we can do is so freaking simple. It really is. It's too easy, but nobody believes you. Everybody says, oh, that sounds too good to be true. And that's the problem. You got the herds following the herds. I'm just going to give you one more story. And this is when my next book comes out. It's all about this. My colleague, my mentor, Brent, talks about going to a big motivational seminar. You remember back in the early 2000s, they had the big Zig Ziglar events, thousands of people. You remember those? You remember the energy in that room? It was like nothing I'd ever seen before because I had gone. Well, Brent talks about going to one of those. And then on one of the breaks where everybody rushes out because they have to go to the bathroom from drinking too much soda, they go out and Brent was talking. There was this long line. He's like, I can't wait. Let's just walk down the hall and see if there's another bathroom. So him and his wife walk around the corner. And right behind one of the concession stands is another bathroom, not a single person in line. So he walks in there and there's maybe one other person at the urinals. And he uses it. He's like, wow, I can't believe I found this. I can't wait to tell these other people so that they don't have to wait in line. He walks as quick as he can back around the corner when he was done. And he sits there, hey, y'all, there's another bathroom right down the hall behind that concession stand. Literally 90 seconds down the hall. If you don't want to wait, just go down there. Not one person got out of line. He looked at him like he was crazy. And he went back and he sat down and he thought to himself, we're at this big event where there's these people that are literally motivating us, telling us how we can change the world. And not one of those people was willing to get out of the line to walk 90 seconds down the hall to relieve themselves from their suffering. How crazy is that parallel to life itself? And that is it. And I don't even know how else to, keep going beyond that. That's the problem. And you are connected, and that's why you're successful. You figured some very simple things out, and you just keep focusing on the stones that aren't being turned over. I commend you for that, man. I really do.
Thank you. So
if my audience wants to find you, wants to connect with you, wants to learn more about you, how do they find you?
I'm on Instagram. I answer DMs, guys. So if I'm not one of those individuals that doesn't respond. JDAMJI, J Damji on Instagram. Find me on Facebook, Jamil Damji, JamilDamji. Follow our company, Keyglee. It's at KEYGLEE, at Keyglee. That's KEYGLEE. Send us a message. Come out to Phoenix. Look, guys, we have an open door policy at our office. Pop in. Send me a DM. Say, look, I really need to see what you guys are doing. I love, what you guys are talking about, or hate what I'm talking about. Whatever it is, you're entitled to your experience. But if you want to see what we're doing and you want to learn more, I am so open to it. And if anybody there is running a wholesale business right now and you're having trouble and you'd like for somebody on my team to, help you out, I give away my staff's time. I'm happy to give you an hour of one of my staff's time. Send me a DM. Let me know what you're thinking or what your biggest issue is, and I'll put you in touch with somebody on my team who can help you fix it.
There you go, folks. Like he just gave it to you, open door policy. I know when I'm in Arizona next, which won't be very long from now, I'm going to be stopping by because I have questions. I want to see this. I want to see, what does a wholesale operation with 40 plus employees look like? What does that energy feel like? What is going on there? Because I bet you it's not a bunch of people sitting around on their phones texting other people. I bet you it's very orchestrated, unbelievable magic. So I'm going to stop. You guys should. So make sure you use that. Save that, write that down like I just did. Write down, how to contact them and use it. And, there's some serious golden nuggets dropped in this episode today. So I hope you guys use this. We're always talking about you guys on your journey to becoming rebel bankers. And you know what? It all starts with just taking that first small step. That first small step might be finding Jamil on Instagram and send him a DM. And watch when he responds. That should just fill you with energy and get you excited because you're thinking that he's not going to respond, and he's knowing you're not going to message him. You won't message, will you? I challenge all of you guys listening to this. Anybody that listens to this, why don't you just take my challenge, and why don't you just all send him a direct message? Let's see how many DMs we can get out of this, because I don't think you will. I don't think any of you will do that because so many people say they're going to do something and they don't because they find excuses. What's your excuse?
Prove them wrong.
What's your excuse? Let's prove everybody wrong. So you guys, you're going to DM Jamil on this, from this podcast, from this episode, and you're just going to say, what's up? Let's see how many of you do it. Thank you all for joining me for another episode of the Real Estate Money School. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.